and I'm glad people are tuning in to check this out. We've got Ritika Shrivastava from Ember Robotics with me today, and basically we're going to talk for just a couple minutes. It's going to be quick, but we want to talk about robotics and how the whole world of agentic and autonomous agents. This is not a new concept. You've been dealing with this for a while within the robotics industry. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
For sure. When it comes to robotics, there's been so many developments. Reinforcement learning, for example, was one of the core changes that made it so much easier to control a robot. The math behind just getting a robot to walk by itself is very complicated, but reinforcement learning and other AI models have really been in the robotic space for a very long time to simplify some of these problems.
Right. And so with that being said, I mean, what do you think that right now, as you see people working with LLMs and with agents and autonomy, what do you think they might be misunderstanding or not doing when they think about putting things into production?
Definitely. I think that's a great question. So these days it's become super easy to build a new tool, whether that's a visualization tool, a control tool, but scaling tools is still where things are difficult. Yeah. And scaling comes down to maintenance. How do you ensure that you build tools that can last? And also, how can you build things even in a manufacturing setting, hardware that can last? And people oftentimes in robotics resort to using cheapest hardware or cheapest tools when doing these types of production.
Well, that's good to know. And in terms of Ember Robotics in particular, y'all are providing observability and evaluation in particular in relation to robotics. So do you think I mean, I don't think this is actually a real question, but clearly that's important when you're putting any kind of agent or any kind of autonomous solution out there. And I assume you're seeing that might be a gap for companies?
100%. So what we see is oftentimes robotics companies, their first demo goes great. They'll have a few hiccups here and there, but the main difficulty lies when you're scaling from 1 to 100. Then you start encountering so many different failures, and at Ember Robotics, we're building the infrastructure to raise those failures, where they're coming from, build out strong logging systems, and systems so that you can maintain your robots and grow your fleet.
I'm curious, as a side note, of what do you think AGI is, and do you think we've hit it?
That's a very good question. So I think in my terms, AGI, I think of it as something that is like a human. So it can build things, it can think. I think in the thinking realm, we've done really well. I can open Claude or any other tools right now and it'll have a great conversation with me. But in the building realm, software building is great. We're still not there in terms of hardware. We are still there. Hardware and robotics is still working on a breakthrough with technologies like VLAs to be able to automate a lot of processes and be able to build hardware in a reliable way.
I know we're doing a very short connection and being able to talk about what's going on with AI, what's going on with robotics. Before we close this out, because it is quick, is there anything else that's on your mind that you wanted to share that you think builders out there need to think about, whether they're working in robotics, whether they're working just in general with any kind of software solution with AI right now?
Sure thing. So I know right now it's a very tough market out there. It's very hard to find jobs. But I will definitely also say this. As a founder myself, right now is the best time to found a company because there are so many opportunities out there. There's this brand new gold mine that has just been revealed, and we're all trying to figure out how is this going to change our lives. And I think it's a great time to put yourself out there, try building something, and see where it goes.
Nice. Thank you, Ritika. I really appreciate you coming. Thanks for those who are tuning in. We're going to have more for you later on, so stay tuned. And we're back. For all those who are watching, thanks for sticking with us. We're still at Replay, and we're live at Replay. And right now I have Brian Douglas, who is from Paper Compute, here with me. How's it going?
I am doing fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, how's the conference been so far?
It's pretty good.
Yeah?
Moscone is a big venue.
It's a really big venue. Do you want to tell those who are watching right now a little bit about what Paper Compute is?
Yeah, Paper Compute, we do infrastructure for agents. So we've got an OTel project called tapes.dev, and then we have a thing called Stereos, which is the runtime for agents.
Nice. Well, so since you're working with runtime for agents, what's something you're seeing right now in production for AI that you feel like people don't necessarily know about, that they should be aware of? What are some of the bigger challenges they're up against right now?
Yeah, the challenge is I think when you're using AI like Claude Code or some AI coding harness, it kind of just works out of the box. But then when you start introducing other things that will help produce proper context for your coding, you got to think about like what comes in and what comes out of the box. So like we have stereos for actually just keeping network control within the box.
Is there something, like when you work with stereo or tape, what are ways in which people are able to maintain and track, long time state?
Yeah. Yeah, so tapes is actually, it's a tool that it's similar like syncing in Dropbox. You just kind of turn it on, it starts recording. So
Okay.
you record your sessions from AI. So today, we're mostly just AI coding. We've only been about 100 days old, so that's our first feature. But the idea is when you have those sessions, you can always go back and go recheck the tapes to see what happened.
Nice.
So then you have like this clear, durable state, which
Nice.
is what's cool about like what Temporal is doing.
Exactly. So something I want to know, in sort of going off on a different direction, but not exactly, is on distributed systems, right? When we get into production, we're usually doing something with distributed systems. Do you feel like there's anything that the AI ecosystem is getting wrong or missing when it comes to distributed systems?
Yeah, I think, well, so the models are really good. So like Anthropic's got like 4.7's Opus, and they got 5.5 for OpenAI. They're really good at things like, having random Janet Jackson songs from 1992, but also
call
writing code. Yeah, escapades.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is like, it knows too much about too many things. So when you think about the thing it gets wrong is if you write Go or Rust, it tries to reinvent everything from bottom up. It never looks for libraries.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Is there something you think is the right direction people have been going in lately with what they're building and how they're getting AI into production?
Yeah, I think actually folks who are doing the proper context engineering was like super hot last summer.
Yeah.
Now we have skills. Obviously, we've got MCP. So like it's really about your tooling because like you have non-deterministic AI. You want to get more determinism within your infrastructure, and you have that through logs and through having durability.
That makes sense. And anything that you feel like is surprising to you right now, or you expect to see from AI in the future that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be surprised by almost any of this stuff. We got robots in Fremont that are being built right now. So
Oh, fascinating.
yeah, so I guess when those cars are driven by robots coming out of the Tesla plant, like I'll be surprised.
I actually really enjoy seeing Waymos and seeing what they're capable of and how that's playing out. Brian, I really appreciate the fact that you came on to Vibe Tech. Any last parting words you have around those, especially those putting AI into production right now and some of the challenges they're facing and what they should think about?
Yeah, you should really think about like where that data is going, like who's training on your data. You have an opportunity to build your own tools, your own infrastructure in-house. And I think companies like Temporal, other companies that are sponsoring here, like Brain Trust, it gives you more opportunity to start building that tooling in-house.
Nice. Well, thanks again for coming, and I hope you have a good rest of your conference. And we are about to take a break, and we will have Beverly from Chime very shortly.
Thank you.
Where we're going. And we're back. So I have with me Beverly Leu, who's at Chime, and I'm glad you're here with me today, also at Replay. How's it been going at Replay so far?
It's been really great. Thanks, Melanie.
Yeah. And I know we were just chatting right before we started up again that you got to see Instacart in terms of one of the talks that they were giving. You found that very valuable. I know you are working specifically in, actually you're an engineer and working on the back end, particularly at Chime, and you're working at a company that is very much regulated. Do you want to tell just a little bit about what Chime does?
Yeah, so Chime is a fintech, and we are trying to make banking accessible to the underbanked. So essentially, it acts very much like a bank, but we take away all the fees and things like that that make normal traditional banks unaccessible to most.
Nice. Now, we've talked a little bit prior to this about how you're currently putting AI into production, and y'all are looking at what that looks like for you. What does that look like for Chime, and especially a company that's a regulated company?
Yeah, so it's actually been pretty tricky because almost all of our features have to go through bank approvals and compliance reviews. And AI by nature is like high risk because it's non-deterministic, so it hallucinates and can do a lot of things that we can't predict ahead of time.
So what are things you are starting to see that are very much needed, and you feel like sometimes people might not necessarily know this when they're putting AI in production?
Yeah, so one thing is I think the importance of evals has been really I think
Evals are definitely very important.
Yeah,
exactly. I can
exactly.
understand that.
Yeah, because a normal unit test doesn't actually catch any of the issues that LLMs bring up. So you can't use our normal testing pathways. Evals is a whole new discipline that I think most engineering teams don't have any experience in.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that it's just starting to become established in terms of what evals should look like? And is there things that you already have strong opinions on that we should have, or that people should always make sure they put in place?
Yeah, there's it's definitely a new concept that
Yeah.
a lot of people are sort of kind of figuring out what is the best practice for.
Yeah.
We found that one, bringing in domain experts to
Domain
actually,
experts are great.
yeah, and also having good data sets and annotation keys for them to actually go through the LLM calls that have been created.
That's so smart to actually make sure, and especially bringing somebody who's from outside to be able to bring that knowledge into. Is there any challenges you're seeing from like scaling these things and what that looks like outside of evals?
You mean scaling AI in general?
Scaling AI in general and prod.
Yeah, a lot of things. I think AI.
Anything in particular you want to talk about in the
Yeah.
few minutes we have?
Sure. Yeah, I think one is like AI is like high latency, like much higher latency than most
Yeah.
other processes. So it requires a lot more retries and throttling and things like that. Also, like providers, they have like lower rate limits than most other vendors would have.
Makes sense.
So it requires a lot more. Yeah,
Yeah, I very much understand what you're telling me. Well, okay, so is there anything you're really excited about around AI that you feel like we haven't achieved or seen yet, but you know is coming?
let me think about this.
And no worries if something is immediately coming to your brain, because I know I threw this question out at you and I hadn't given you a heads up. I was thinking about asking it. So
That's
it just
okay.
came to my mind. I was like, is there anything that's on your mind around AI that you feel like no one has thought about yet, or you feel like we're starting to see the edges of that's coming?
I think conversational AI has been really interesting to watch.
Right?
Yeah, like it's really fascinating how it can actually emulate like emotions and empathy, and almost like it almost feels like you are talking to a real human being, like when you're working with them.
Definitely understand that feeling, and also seeing that myself. Well, I mean, I really appreciate the fact that you came on and joined us in this live stream. I know live stream is an interesting mechanism to work with, or an interesting platform to be working with. Is there anything you wanted to share that we hadn't already covered that's on your mind around AI, around prod, things that you feel like the developers should know?
Yeah, just that I think there's a lot of like hidden issues with AI that makes it harder to scale. So having a good like harness and frameworks around it is like really critical.
Is there any specific harness pointers that you have in your mind right now from what you've seen so far?
I think one thing is like each model itself behaves so differently that they do need like its own harness on its own.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they need their own prompts, own evals and things like that.
On guardrails.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beverly, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And we're going to take another break, and we will come back and we'll have one last conversation before we close out the day. But thanks again for those who are watching.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we're back. We're back at Replay, and I have Johann Schleier-Smith with me, who is actually at Temporal, one of our lead AI engineer leaders, actually, at Temporal. And I'm totally missing on the exact title that I remember you have, but I know you basically lead all the things around AI as it relates to engineering. How's it going?
It's going great.
Good.
We're having a lot of fun building a lot of things.
Yeah, no, I know. I've been watching it. So I know at the conference, well, actually, how's the conference been for you so far?
The conference is really great. So the folks that are here,
Yeah.
Temporal users, customers, just kind of hearing what they're building and hearing how they're reacting to some of the things that we have released, it's been really fun
Yeah.
to get that validation essentially for what people have been working really hard on.
Right? I mean, people come up to me and tell me how much they love using it when they've been using it, so it's really kind of exciting in that regard. So I know you did a talk earlier, and you were able to share a lot of new things that are going on around AI that we're building. So can you just give a little bit of a sense to those who are watching, especially because I suspect many are not here and not seeing this, and give them a sense of what's going on?
Yes, so at a super high level, what we're doing in engineering on the AI side is we are taking those lessons that folks like OpenAI, who have both a lot of experience in AI over many years
Right.
and really large, really capable teams,
Yeah.
what they've been able to accomplish with Temporal and bringing that to everybody else. So
Yeah.
folks that may be relatively new to AI and figuring out how to get started with it, or that maybe just don't have engineering resources of the scale of some of the largest companies. And so the types of things that we talked about this morning include a lot of our integrations. So these have been ongoing over the course of almost a year now, starting with OpenAI Agents SDK, Pydantic AI, most recently ADK for Google, and others including AI SDK by Vercel, and OpenTelemetry, BrainTrust, and so forth. So those are a big part of what we're doing, but we also have a number of other features in Temporal that are new, large payload storage for those folks that are using AI in data processing pipelines, priority and fairness, which helps manage some of those resources when you get rate limited on your APIs, workflow streams, which help you deliver really live and interactive experiences with AI.
Right.
Which are very much what people want to build today for agents.
I've heard, well, and actually I was going to say for the priority and fairness, I've heard a bunch of people telling me like how excited they are about that in particular. So, but I mean, all of these, especially serverless was another thing that, it's not necessarily explicitly AI, but it's definitely something that people have been expressing some excitement around.
It's definitely AI adjacent, and once you start building agents, which are one of the big use cases for AI, they're actually not the only one, but it's definitely what people talk about. And yes, you want to have them be perhaps long running, right, and spinning up and down when something is happening that they need to respond to, or perhaps on timers as well. And so Temporal enables that, but then the runtime that's elastic can be a great complement.
Yeah. Well, and with all this being said, like with what we've built so far, is there things in particular you think are top of mind for engineers and devs that you're currently watching and you're thinking about as you think about what we're building and where we're going?
Yeah, so it is a lot of what we talked about. There are also some things that are on the roadmap or adjacent that I think are definitely questions that people are asking about the ecosystem. So one of them is we hear a lot about MCP, and how does that play with Temporal? And really it is a match in terms of what Temporal is often providing is sort of the glue, the connective glue. And so we're part of the Agentic AI Foundation, and so we've been involved there. Other areas include, let's see.
Well, I was going to say, I know right now there's a lot of conversations going on around harnesses in particular. That's top of mind for people. And so it's something I know we've been talking about internally as well, and how much that matters and how to fit into that ecosystem, so to speak. Yeah,
so in the most recent release of OpenAI Agents SDK, they made some significant additions that basically add a harness type capability there, so it has the ability to orchestrate the sandboxes, whether that's Daytona or E2B or there's a number of them, Modal, for example. And if you combine that with Temporal, all of that orchestration becomes durable, reliable. It means that your sandboxes, when they are idle, they cannot be consuming resources, and they can sort of reliably be returned to service when they're needed. Similar in some ways to serverless, which is also providing these fine-grained isolates. But the harness conversation remains very fluid. And so I can guarantee you that the way that we're thinking about it and the way that we're talking about it in 6 months is going to be quite different from the way it is today.
I believe it.
But there are some big questions to be answered there, because what it's really about, in my view, maybe opinionated view, but getting all of that agentic activity into the cloud, basically getting it off of people's laptops, is going to be really important for enterprises, because in order to really have trust around it and to really unlock the agency, you also need to put guardrails or some sort of borders on it. And harnesses are a good way of doing it. They're also a way of adding capability, but they're also a way of sort of controlling. And when you put some of those limits on what an agentic system can do, that means that within those limits, you could really let it run wild, and that's where you really get a lot of capability.
Which is a big deal. A lot of people want to have these agents being able to run as wild as possible, but when you're putting them into prod, you have to be able to put some level of guardrails, which I know Temporal plays a big role in that, but there's so many other guardrails that people are looking at and trying to think about. Anything else that you that's on your mind around AI that you wanted to share while we have this moment?
Well, look, I think what I'm actually most interested in is hearing from everybody else in the community about what they're thinking about. And so, I would say that this event here at Replay has been great because of the feedback we've been getting, but I would love to get that feedback from the broader audience. So whether that's on X, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on our Slack channels, we're open.
That's a great call out. And also, if anybody wants to leave any feedback in DMs, leave any feedback into our YouTube channel, please do. We definitely want to hear from you. So thank you, Johann, for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we got to get on the live stream and share a little bit about what's going on at Replay for those who are watching. And we will come back tomorrow with some more live streams content from Replay. So stay tuned for tomorrow. And thanks again for joining.